cool of you guys to join us. I'm very honored to have Wendy Scurr here today. She's got a vast amount of knowledge about trauma. We deal with trauma in what we do, but in a very different way. So people will come and tell me that they've been in a violent confrontation in their homes, they've had a home invasion, and they've been raped, and they're so traumatized they don't know how to deal with it. And I'm not sure how to deal with that, and I normally will send them to you. So I really think this is something that we need to explore.
Sure.
My name is Kelee Arrowsmith. This is Wendy Scurr. So welcome, Wendy.
Hi, Kelee. It's lovely to be chatting to you about trauma.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I spent 25 years teaching as a teacher and working with children who had been traumatized. So I really get how a traumatized child battles to learn and how a traumatized child grows into an adult who remains and carries that trauma.
Okay.
And I think one of the pivotal moments in my life as a teacher was when a taxi carrying children to the school where I was working was involved in a head-on collision. And these children were not physically harmed, but their bodies took a big fright. And when I took them back to the school, I did some tension release therapy with them.
Is that the TRE stuff?
That's the TRE, okay. The tension release exercise work.
Okay.
And that allowed their bodies to release that trauma and everything that went with that very scary experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed them to move from being in their fight and flight part of their brain to get back into their neocortex, which is the thinking brain.
Okay.
So later in the day, when they had to write their Friday assessments, they were able to write them and to get the same kind of results as they normally did,
Okay.
which was wonderful to see.
It's quite amazing that we both deal in the fight or flight, but in a very different way. So in what we do, it's fight or flight now. The gun is in your face or whatever. With you, they stay in fight or flight, which is something that I never understood or never knew until you explained it to me. So that's very interesting.
Absolutely.
So how can I tell if somebody that I love or even myself are in fight or flight?
It's a really good question, because very often it's difficult to know. Very often people who have not experienced a hard trauma, like being held up at gunpoint or being hijacked, they don't even think that they've been traumatized. And
Okay.
I see this when clients come and they're battling to sleep, because that's one of the symptoms of having been traumatized. Or they are dealing with very intense emotional responses. They might be
sorry to interrupt you, but you mentioned about when you fill in your indemnity, and I thought that was quite interesting.
Yes, so I have an indemnity form, and one of the questions on my form is, have you ever experienced trauma? And you'd be surprised that most people just write no. One or two might write yes, or they just put a dash there. And I always go through every question on the forms. It's important for me to understand what their nervous systems might have experienced. And when I go through that question, I say, is there anything that you might have experienced? It might have been traumatic or scary for you. And then everything starts coming out. And then I hear about how their childhood was really stressful, very traumatic. They witnessed something that was really very unpleasant. And then all of a sudden they realize, but I've actually been traumatized.
So they say no, but yes.
It's a no, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how can I tell that I've been traumatized? I know you mentioned something about insomnia, and that's kind of funny because I think half my friends are traumatized because they're constantly on Facebook the whole night. Okay, either that or they're addicts. So how can I tell that I'm traumatized?
So if somebody has been traumatized, what happens is they are either going to live in the fight and flight part of their brain, which is their survival brain, or they're going to move into the freeze part, which is the part of the brain that really just keeps them very safe. And the nervous system has really gone into a state of freeze, because that's the place where it's going to be kept safe.
Okay.
And they will find it really hard to focus, because the entire brain is just wired to I need to possibly run away or I need to possibly fight for my life.
So is that something I can see? Something that, how does it manifest?
Sometimes people have very strong emotional responses. They get angry very quickly.
Okay.
They might have very intense feelings of sadness or grief that might come from nowhere. They might find it really hard to focus. They might be literally, and then the child will be all over the place.
Okay.
Sort of jumping around, not able to really sit and complete a task.
So those are pretty much symptoms of trauma
those
of some type.
Some of the symptoms, yeah.
So what type of techniques do you use? I know you mentioned TRE. Is that, do you do hypnosis? Do you do, what do you use?
Sure. So I use TRE, which is a body-based technique which allows the body to release the fright and that the person experienced at the time of the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really a wonderful way for the body to process that.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps the body to move out of being in fight and flight and getting back into your neocortex, or the part of your brain where you are going to be making good decisions, for example.
So it's actually a physical thing that you do with them.
So that is the one thing. And I very often start with that because it helps the person just to literally begin to feel calm again, to feel more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And I also use quantum energy coaching, which is essentially a coaching tool. And it's a wonderful way to work with negative thoughts or traumas that are sitting in somebody's subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And when we work with the trauma from the subconscious part of the brain, we're able to literally, it's almost like taking out a weed that's got a very strong root.
Okay.
And if we can take that out of the subconscious, then it has a very liberating and a freeing effect. And clients can move forwards without that subconscious effect of the trauma.
So what's the difference between stress and trauma? Because I'm confused. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a good question, Kelee, and I'm glad that you asked.
Thanks.
So in terms of the body does not differentiate between stress and trauma. It just knows that something happened that made it feel unsafe.
Okay.
So we sometimes use the word stress because we think it's not as severe as trauma.
Okay.
But in terms of the body, the body will respond in the same way.
Okay. So will TRE and QEC work for stress and trauma then?
Absolutely.
Or is one for one and the other one's for the other one?
I use both.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful way of working with releasing trauma from the body and then releasing trauma from the mind.
Okay. Okay. And can you do one without the other?
You can. Although I found that the combination is extremely powerful. It's very powerful. You can work just with the one, but there's always room to just dig a little deeper, and often clients just need a little bit more assistance, and that they want to deal with some limiting older things that are still hanging around there.
So I know you've done some stuff with a member of my family, and you really made a big difference in their life in just 2 sessions. That's one of the things I really like about what you do, that people don't have to come to you for years and years and years and dig up every weed in their garden, to use your term. I like the fact that the person came twice and was completely over the thing that was traumatizing them at the time. So that was absolutely wonderful. So what are the effects of living in survival mode for extended periods? You talked about this fight or flight mode. I guess it's survival mode for extended periods, because I think if you don't get over it, you just stay there.
Absolutely right. And if you think about your nervous system, if your nervous system is staying in fight and flight, what happens is that it's never able to relax. Your body is continually flooding you with stress chemicals that are designed to enable you to run or to fight. Adrenaline and cortisol are two of probably the most commonly spoken about ones. And after a while, the body really just it doesn't work as it should. So the physiology becomes interrupted in terms of how the body systems are supposed to work. And if left undealt with, one stands the risk of really becoming ill. And we think of some
like
of the
physically
ill, and I'm talking about some of those lifestyle diseases that come about as a result of unprocessed stress, and cancer is one of them. If you think of diabetes, high blood pressure, any of those stress-related illnesses, and it's almost as if you're sitting with a low-grade permanent tension in your body, and after a certain amount of time, your body really can't sustain that, and it starts to shout, and sometimes it shouts really loudly.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So if it affects your nervous system, and that affects everything at work, at home, so how would you normally go about treating somebody who's had a traumatic? And let's talk about the two different traumas, okay? Let's talk about the violent trauma, the hard trauma, as you call it, and let's talk about the softer trauma where it's maybe abuse, mental abuse over years. Let's talk about the difference. Would you treat them differently? Does it take longer? How would you even start?
If it's been a fresh trauma, for example, a client has been hijacked, then tension release exercise is a wonderful way to allow the body to release that fright, and to get the client to move out of being in fight and flight, literally, and to get back into their neocortex.
Okay.
And I think that's really the only way that we're going to enable the person to become physically calmer. And I remember working with a client, and she said to me, I can really feel that the heat in my body is my body feels hotter. And when I started doing TRE, I could actually feel how my body temperature began to decrease as I began to release that trauma from my body. So I use TRE as my number one go-to technique when someone has experienced a trauma like that. But even for trauma that might have happened over many years, it might be the emotional related trauma. TRE will also assist clients. So it doesn't matter whether it's a fresh trauma or a historical trauma. TRE is still going to be that mechanism which is going to allow the nervous system to slowly release the accumulated stress and tension that the body carries.
I think by now everybody's going, what is TRE? So can you tell us some secrets about it? Can you let us in on maybe a little bit? Don't give it all away.
Oh, okay. So mammals are born and have this instinctive mechanism which allows them to gently tremor or to shake after a traumatic experience. So if you think about your dog, when you take your animal to the vet, stands and maybe they quiver, don't they?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And what that quivering is doing is allowing the animal to release the strength, this tension in the muscles, and also the stress chemicals that were being produced when it was feeling scared.
Okay.
And once it's home and it's finished doing its shaking, it just carries on with life as if nothing had happened.
So that's what dogs do when there's fireworks and they're terrified.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's quite a natural thing.
It is. And if you think about animals in the wild, if you think about a little buck that has escaped being chased by a predator, it will stand under the tree and it will gently just have a very gentle quiver or a tremor happening. And it's doing exactly the same thing. Because the animal wisely knows that if it doesn't release that tension in the body and release the stress chemicals, its nervous system is going to have to carry all of that around with it.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And I think it's that physical anchor.
Sure.
To me, that makes all the difference. In the people that I've sent to you, they come back and they go, I'm over it.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of, let's move on. Let's find out how we can prevent this in the future. So that allows me to do the next step.
Absolutely. And when they're out of their fight and flight, you can work with them more effectively.
So So can you give any more secrets away?
What do you want to know?
I mean, do you kind of go, oh, I'm going to shake?
So
is it a process? Is it?
So it's a set of gentle stretches that are designed to get to the body to a place where there's sufficient muscle fatigue, where they are going to gently shake when they're lying on a yoga mat.
Okay.
And what's important is that the environment that I create and that is available for my clients is one that makes them feel really safe.
Okay.
And safety is paramount to their bodies feeling that they are in a space where they can start to release all stuff.
Okay, so that's what my family member was talking about.
Yeah.
Because they were kind of going blah 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 blah, and I'm like, okay, whatever, so long as you're feeling better.
Sure, yeah.
But it really worked. So
absolutely, and being body based, it does work because the body knows that it has the tool to release trauma in that way, and it literally goes about doing what it's designed to do.
Okay. So I have a good idea about that, and I understand why a lot of people will. It's almost like we call it going into shock, I guess, where people shake and then you put a blanket around them and you give them sugar water and blah blah blah, and you actually want them to shake.
Absolutely, you don't want to give them sugar water.
Okay.
You want to reassure them.
Okay.
You want to keep them warm, and you want to tell them that their bodies are doing exactly what they need to do.
Okay.
And if they can sit there and shake, eventually the shaking will come to an end. And they would have done exactly what the little buck in the wild would have done. And
that's very interesting.
You do them a huge favor by allowing their bodies to process that trauma. And the sooner it can be done, the better. Because undealt with trauma can very often lead to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay. So, but can you do TRE 5 years later?
Absolutely.
Because what often happens is I'll do an anti-hijacking course or whatever, and I can see this person, a lot of times it's a guy, because a woman will go and get help, whereas a guy's like, oh no, tough enough, I don't need that, and you can see him sitting there going, I survived, I know what to do, and you can see him get quite angry. And then if we speak to their colleagues, they go, well, he's changed. And I think so if he experienced it 5 years ago, can he now do TRE and will it help?
Absolutely, because the nervous system remembers. Every cell in his body has an active memory about what it experienced at that time of that trauma.
Okay.
So rather do it than never do it.
Okay. And will it take longer to then get over it?
It might take a little longer, but at the end of the day, rather allow him to release that trauma than never. Okay,
so basically TRE is a physical thing that you do, and let's talk about the other one.
So quantum energy coaching, being a coaching tool, it's a wonderful way for clients to work with what is getting in the way of them moving on. And for many clients, it might be a trauma, or it might be memories that they have about things that were said to them.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm having a difficult time looking at the difference.
Sure. So today I was working with a client, and this client had people say to her when she was growing up, oh, you're putting on a little bit of weight, you're getting a little bit chubby. And some of those statements and those comments of her past have stuck with her entire life. And now in her 50s, she still has very active, alive memories around that and battles with weight issues. And because of those comments that were made when she was a young person, as a child, there's still a trauma that's very much alive there. And her feelings of self-esteem and being confident just don't exist.
Shame. So that's when you would use
and that's when I use quantum energy coaching, which is a wonderful way of being able to work with that trauma at the subconscious level.
Okay. Earlier when we were chatting, you showed me a letter from one of your clients, and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, do you want? Can you don't mention the client, but just talk a little bit about what happened.
So I've worked with this client, and her from a young child, she just had a very emotionally abusing or abusive environment in which she lived, and went and spent much time in psychiatrists' rooms, psychologists' rooms, and nothing changed for her. Nothing changed. And she came to me almost out of desperation, facing a very dark place, and knowing that she needed to do something. And we've done just over 10 sessions or so, and her life has really changed.
Wow.
It's such a heartwarming story just to see how tools like TRE and quantum energy coaching, QEC, can really deal with issues in that session and don't require week in, week out visits, just talking around how the client felt at the time. But we can actually actively do something in terms of releasing those very active memories that are held in the subconscious.
Yeah, I'd be interested to. I'm quite interested to come and try that QEC thing. Not that I'm traumatized, just because I want to know what the difference is between that and regular counseling. I'd be very interested, and I'll make a little 5-minute recording once I've done it. I won't give any secrets away, okay? But I'll add it onto this this thing. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay, we don't have any questions at the moment. Feel free to pop questions, and Wendy will answer them.
Sure.
So, what about people that live far away? I live in Switzerland. I'm lying, I'm making it up. Okay, I live in Switzerland. Wendy, I watched this wonderful thing that you do, and can you help me?
Absolutely. So I do QEC or quantum energy coaching with Zoom, and it works fabulously.
Is it?
Absolutely. It's amazing.
So I can be anywhere.
So I've worked with clients anywhere in the world, and it's just wonderful to be able to see that client face to face, although they're just on the other side of on the screen. But the process is exactly the same, and it just works so well. It really works well.
So for somebody far away, you would use more the QEC thing?
I would do the QEC, yeah.
Okay.
And then that's going to work with the trauma. It's going to change those negative thought patterns and old programming that is getting in the way of the client being able to achieve what they want.
Okay.
Without being held back by traumatic experiences in the past.
Yeah, it's very interesting when we do the hijacking safety or the home invasion safety, or one of the courses that we do. I can have a room full of 20 or 30 people, and the moment I say certain things, I can look at them and I know exactly who is still suffering from trauma. And I have to say, like, there's a lot of businesses who require their people to be on the road, and so many of those people have been in hijackings, and because it's the norm, it's not really spoken about. They're traumatized, they stay home for a day, and then they come back to work, and they never function and properly again. I think until they've experienced something like TRE or QEC. And what happens is we'll do a simulation. So we'll put them in the car and we'll go, okay, you mommy, you daddy, you teenager, you baby, ready. And then I'll attack them, obviously with a fake weapon. And the people with that pent up trauma will immediately do one of two things. They'll either lash out and really try and hurt me, which, I kind of hold onto the door so they can't open it. I know what they're going to do from experience, or they just turn into jelly bubbles and cry. Then we work through that. But I don't think that actually brings the trauma to an end. I think that brings it to the surface.
Sure, yeah, it does. It almost acts like a trigger because it's still very much alive in their nervous system. Although they might not be aware of it, it's still there. It's still alive.
So I think there's some traumas that we can work through on our own, really. But I think a lot of people don't understand how powerful trauma is in our lives. And so I really admire what you do.
Thank you.
So I really need to do this QEC thing with you.
Yes,
how do I get a hold of you, Wendy? Do a little bit of advertisement.
So you can go and send me an email on info@wendyscurr.com.
Okay, can you spell that? Because I
Yeah.
know I put too few R's in it in the first ad.
Okay, so it's info, INFO, it's my name, Wendy, WendyScurr.com.
Okay, so it's double R.
Double R.
Scurr.
Scurr, double
Okay.
R.com.
That's it. And you have a website?
I've got a website. My website is wendyscurr.com, www.wendyscurr.com.
Okay. Okay.
Nice and easy.
And I don't want you to give your phone number over the...
No, I'm not going
over
to give
this.
my phone number.
So pop Wendy an email. Wendy, thank you so much for joining me today. And I want to thank everybody out there. Thanks for joining us. It was super nice. And thanks for not making me laugh because I know cough, Wendy.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Kelee.
All right. You're
Cool.
very welcome. Thanks again, everybody. And see you again at the next webinar.
Cool.
Ciao.
Bye.